before we had gone in there, that was that morning when we were sitting in the back room before we went out. I told the governor, I said, I've got looked like a kind of a granola nutty kind of bar, but it had hemp in it. And I said, I've got this hemp bar, Governor. I said, if you can figure out some way of working this into your closing arguments, I said, it might have some impact. And he just, he just smiled. He said, I'll figure something out. And
hey guys, it's Mandi with Global Hemp Association. I wanted to say thank you so much for joining. I'm excited about the opportunity to build a relationship and connect this supply chain. I mean, after all, that's why we started the association. Our association was built on the foundation of connecting supply chain, building relationships, and helping you grow your business. Anyone from farmers, manufacturers, and distributors, people that are passionate about the supply chain, and those creating products selling into biofuels, plastics, textiles, construction, and building materials. Welcome and thank you very much for joining. When you do join, leave a little note. Let us know that you're here. We'll have to say hello to you. I'm really excited about having Joe on today. Excited to introduce anybody that doesn't know Joe. Most of you in the industry I know do. I've already gotten a lot of comments that they're excited to have you on today. But Joe, do you want to introduce yourself? Tell me a little bit about how you got into the space. You've got quite the background and quite the history. And yeah, you want to share a little bit about what you've been working on?
I started, back in 92 with, just haphazardly was looking through some old newspapers and saw where the Kentucky Hemp Growers Co-op was. Well, F.G. Clay, the guy that was running the co-op, was asked by Roosevelt to come to Washington, D.C. to run the Hemp for Victory program. And that was kind of the beginning of it, because it just kind of struck me, because when I grew up, we've got the Kentucky Tobacco Growers Co-op, and to see something that I hadn't seen before. And, back then hemp was, I knew the difference, but hemp was synonymous with marijuana in the general public. And so that was kind of the beginning of it. Total accident. I just happened to have some time, and it was these books. What back then, now we store everything on computers, but back then what they did, they would take a month's worth of newspaper and put it in these big books. They would just bind them up. So that's what I was looking through when I found them. But it was after that, I started looking around and finding out what was going on, or what had been going on in Kentucky, all those years prior to 1942 and up to 1942. That was when the corporation papers were put in, and I think the article was in 43, I guess, maybe. But so they were incorporated in 42. And I took those corporation papers and went to a buddy of mine whose dad was really, one of the big farmers back in the 40s, and took it to him, and he looked at all the names. There was 21 names on the corporation papers, and he said, these are the who's who in agriculture. So to have, all these guys, 17, 18 guys, top farmers in central Kentucky signing on to this thing, gave it validity that something was serious going on. So that was kind of the beginning of it. And from there, I just started collecting information, and we could take 2 hours and I couldn't tell you the whole story, but the short version is I collected all of this information, what was happening in Europe, what was happening in Canada at the time, all the European Union's rules and regulations for hemp. I spoke with the Minister of Hemp. It was Minister of Chambray there. And he was the one that was telling me about what was happening in England and kind of what they were doing. So I had all this information and had kind of started to, had the idea of, reorganizing the co-op, but really didn't have the you needed to have something happen to really reintroduce the co-op. So what happened was, again, total happenstance. I turned on the radio, which at the house, and I don't sit around and listen to the radio, but I just happened to turn it on, and there was an announcement that Governor Burton Jones was having open door at 4. And so what they would do is anybody that wanted to come in and talk about really anything, if they wanted to express their views with the governor, they could come in and sign up and do it. So, I was thinking, I got all this information. I got, I might as well, let's just take a shot at it. So I talked to my wife, and she said, "You're crazy." And I said, "Well, we got all this information. We got to do something with it." So we finally talked into it, and we go over, and I'm not going to sign up saying anything about hemp. No, this was out of the question. And I didn't even know you had to say what you were going to talk to the governor about. So it kind of surprised me when I got there. And, finally I just went, okay, what it was really about is we were losing tobacco then. And so, I put on there, I want to talk about, the farmers losing income from tobacco. And so, sit there, and I think, we were probably 10th or 11th, because there was probably 30 people there. And so we come in, and there's 6 or 7 people sitting, on the right near where the governor was. And so we sat down in front of him, and I just started talking about, back then they were having congressional hearings, and all these top executives for the tobacco industry were saying, they were raising their hand and swearing that nicotine is not addictive. And of course we know it is, and everybody knew it was, but they were just protecting the industry. But seeing the writing on the wall, I knew that, what was going to happen, which did end up happening, was going to have a big effect on the farmers. So that's what I started and kind of told him. And I said, Governor, your farm was one of the premier hemp farms in in the county in central Kentucky. And I said, started telling him about what that I've talked to the minister of hemp in France, and I just started laying out everything I had. Showed him pictures, showed him the documents that I collected, and the one thing I think that it really didn't mean a whole lot in the grand scheme of things, but I'd collected a bunch of old hemp fiber and had beat it up with a hammer to a pulp and made paper out of it. And it was like Bible paper. It rattled when you shook it. And, after I told him everything and laid everything out, I asked him if he had a sheet of paper, writing paper. And he, can I see it? And so he handed it to me, and I put this other paper over top of it and tore exact same size, of each paper. And I said, "You got a match or a lighter?" So he gave me a book of matches. I lit his paper up and dropped it in the ashtray, and it left this big black ash. And then I took the hemp paper and lit it up, and it just went poof, and it just had a little gray spot right there where it was. And you could see the governor went, "Wow." And I was like, okay, that at least got his attention. And he said, "Well, Joe," he said, "with all this information here," he said, "if you were governor, what would you do?" And I said, "Well, Governor," I said, "I would start a task force to look into what I'm saying and see if any of this is true or not." And he said, "Joe," he said, "I don't have any doubt what you're saying is true." But he said, and I said, "Well," I said, "Governor, it's not really whether you believe it or not." I said, "If you form a task force, then it gives credibility to what we're saying." And he said, I think you're exactly right. And he looked over at his guys and said, work with Joe and let's get this started. So that was the impetus right then to reorganize and, bring the Kentucky Hemp Growers Co-op, back into modern times. So went over and reorganized it, incorporated it, and when you do that, I mean, you still, that it gave us credibility having that, that group studying it, but what really gave us credibility was that I was working with Dave Spalding and Andy Graves, and Andy was a seventh generation hemp farmer. I wanted to be a seventh generation hemp farmer. And so his dad was the chairman of the board emeritus for the National City Bank and a pillar of the community. And when we had talked to Andy about it, he said, well, let's talk to my dad. He said he knows a lot about it. So we talked with, we got in and started talking to Jake, and we were going, he's going, you boys aren't telling me anything. He says, I know all about hemp. And he pulled out this picture of him as he was probably 16 years old. And he was out in the field with one of the field hands weighing up this big thing of hemp. And he said, I was working the hemp crop, after my dad died. And he said, he said, you guys can't tell me anything about him. And so we're sitting there, and, I was telling him about, meeting with the governor and everything. And he's going, well, he said, what do you boys, what would you like for me to do? And I hadn't really thought about it. I hadn't even thought that he would even say anything or want to be involved. And so it was just off the cuff. I said, we're reorganizing the Kentucky Hemp Growers Cooperative Association. And what about you being the chairman of the board? And he just looked, and he was a jolly, jolly old guy, just one of the nicest gentlemen you'd ever want to meet. And, he just leaned back in his chair and he said, and laughed. He said, I'd be glad to do that. So that gave us credibility that, we couldn't have got any other way. And, so where we are today has a lot to do with Jake and Andy and Dave, because, when we started, we couldn't even get in to see the legislators. They would see us. We met with one guy, and we didn't trap him, but we kind of caught him, off guard a little bit. And we said, we'd like for you to introduce legislation to allow farmers to grow hemp. And he looked at us like we just said we want him to pass a law to, I don't know, but he was like, and he said, boys, he said, until the people know the difference, he said, I know the difference between hemp and marijuana. He said, but until the general public does, he said, you're not going to find anybody to touch this with a 10-foot pole. So then that started up the next chapter of this, which was, going out and educating the public. So this was still 94. This was the late summer of 94. And so we'd reorganize it. We had all this stuff that we had enough stuff for a damn museum. And so we were starting to go to Farm Bureau meetings. Andy at the time was the president of the Fayette County Farm Bureau, where Lexington's situated, and right in the middle of the heart of hemp country. So, anyway, in the fall of 94, that's when the phone rang and Woody Harrelson was on the other line. And we had a mutual friend, and he had been telling Woody about what we were doing in Kentucky. And so we talked for, I don't know, half an hour, 45 minutes. And he said, well, I'd like to come in and meet you. So that was on a Tuesday, and on a Thursday he comes in, and it was again, one of those serendipitous things. I had a younger brother that passed away in June of that year. And so this was 4 or 5 months later. Woody shows up, and I mean, it was uncanny the way that they just were so much alike. And so that was really, to have something like that happen to you, anybody, once in your lifetime is a blessing. But it was incredible. And so we sit down and talked, and that night he called Laura, his wife, and had Laura fly in, and they stayed for 3 or 4 days. And when he left, Woody said, he said, I want to help whatever I can do. He said, all you got to do is ask. So then that gave us even more of a platform to get, education done. And so we did a essay contest for high school and grade school kids. And got great response. Woody, came in to judge and give out the awards and stuff. So we were getting a lot of PR. We were going to, Farm Bureau meetings. We went to the National Farm Bureau meeting and talked about hemp. And the second year that we went, we got a resolution passed. We got one passed in Kentucky. And this was, I think this was 95 95. And so in 96, Woody had just finished shooting The People versus Larry Flint, and Kentucky, in its legislative wisdom, took out the exemption for hemp that's in all the federal laws and all state laws that pretty much adopted the same language. And we had taken out that language, so it made hemp illegal. So Woody and I talked about it, and we decided to test the law and plant the hemp seeds. And so we got French certified hemp seeds. So we wanted to make sure that they were low THC and certified THC below 0.3. Mm-hmm. And I went to a friend of mine, Burl McCoy, and Burl, was from Eastern Kentucky. He was part of the Hatfield McCoy clan. And so, I said, look, I told him what we wanted to do. I said, we want to plant 4 hemp seeds because 5 is a felony and we don't want to get into the felony area. But we want to try to get, wherever we do it, we want to get arrested. And then we want to have, when we go to court, if we're found guilty, then we'll appeal it. If we're found not guilty, then we want the prosecutor to appeal it. And he said, well, let me see what I can do. And so, about 3 or 4 days later, he called me up. He said, okay. He said, I've got it. We've got it set up. So that kind of started everything, got everything in motion that was going to happen. So at the same time, I decided, I wanted to kind of make it a big production without actually anybody knowing what was going to happen. So I started the international. It was the first, and probably they were doing it in Europe, but it was the first U.S. International Hemp Conference there in Lexington. So we had people from all over the world. We had hemp guys from Australia, from France, Ukraine, England, Canada. And so that was going to be on Saturday. And Sunday we were going to do the planning. And then so we were having all these guys come in. And I had another friend that we'd been working with. She was a school teacher, Donna Cockrell. Donna was one of those firebrands. She was, and she wasn't afraid of anything. And so I went to Donna and I said, Donna, we've got all these guys coming in town. Woody's coming in. what do you think about all of us coming to your class and talk to your kids about hemp? And she, oh, that'd be great. Oh, I'd love that. That would be wonderful. We'll plant a tree. And so it's all set up now. So everybody came in on Thursday. So Friday we go to Simpsonville Elementary, and we go in and go into her room. We've got all the guys from France. We had hemp seeds, French certified hemp seeds with us, and Jake was there. The guys from England, the guys from Canada, all those guys were there. And we sit and talk to the kids about it. And they were, six. I was think it was sixth grade, but it might have been seventh. But anyway, they were just, they were thrilled. What Woody got up and talked to them about, the benefits of hemp and everything. And then we went outside and planted a tree, which is still growing there today. But this is almost 20 years later, and or it is more than 20. It's 25 years later. Yeah. So I want to go and see what that tree looks like.
Yeah, yeah.
Climb up in it. But so we plant the tree and everything. So the DARE, I don't even know if they have those officers anymore, but the DARE officer went ballistic. She went to the principal and got all the students, parents, some of them riled up. And so there was a big thing in the newspaper, in Simpsonville newspaper, about, this controversy. And but I had a friend that was he was a reporter for the Lexington Herald at the time. And I told him what we were doing to give him an exclusive on it. So he came there. So he wrote the whole story up, and he didn't see the DEA, the DARE thing. He didn't hear about it, so that wasn't in the paper. But on Saturday morning, the front of the page of the paper was Woody in Simpsonville Elementary. And so we had the conference that day, and we had the TV stations, newspapers, and so that night, we had a little get together at the house, and we still didn't tell. Nobody knew what was going to happen except the attorneys, Woody, myself, Governor Nunn was involved in it, and the Turner people, Ted Turner's people, because Woody had a friend down there that worked with Ted to help give away that $200 million, whatever it was he was giving away. Yeah. So he arranged to have a film crew come up. So we get in the car and do a caravan out into Eastern Kentucky, and met with, the Commonwealth attorney. And what nobody knows is the Commonwealth attorney had a piece of property that we were going to plant on, but it couldn't be his property. So he deeded an acre to his daughter. And then his daughter did a 1-year lease to Woody for the land. And so we go out there, and Woody's digging up the thing. They're up the ground. They're filming and everything. And so I call the sheriff's office, and said I want to report a crime in progress. And so I told them that we had somebody planting hemp seeds out here, and so they came out, arrested Woody. But what was great is, so we had Saturday morning, we had the front page from Donna. Sunday morning, we had the front page from the International Conference. And Monday, we had the front page for Woody planting the hemp seeds on Sunday. So we had the front page 3 days in a row. And so that helped, that was kind of one of the big things that really helped educate people, the general public about, the benefits of hemp. So that was in 96. So I think it was in 97 or 98 we had the University of Kentucky. Woody funded a survey, and the survey came back showing that 76% of the people in Kentucky somewhat or strongly favored allowing farmers to grow hemp. Oh. So now we had our ammunition to go back to the, and in the meantime, there's still a lot of stuff I'm leaving out. There was a lot of stuff we were doing. But that was the thing that gave us, what we really wanted, because now we could go back to the legislators, and the research was done by the University of Kentucky. So it was as credible a poll that you could have gotten. So, so we get that, we take it. Now we start going to the legislators and talking to them and saying, look, the majority of your constituents, and it didn't make any difference, Republican or Democrat, it was the same. And so we tried to get a bill passed in 90. I think 98 was the first year that we structured a bill. And so then again or let's see, I'm trying to think. Woody got his final trial. We went through 4 trials, and we ended up going to the Supreme Court, who remanded back down to the lower court and had the trial. And I'm kind of skipping all over, because one thing I remember, it's a great story about the trial and stuff. But
it's one of my favorite parts of your story. Is the granola bar and
right. So we go to court, and when I asked Governor Nunn, because there was 4 attorneys involved in it, and I'd asked Governor Nunn to do the closing arguments. And by this time he had met Woody through this all the time, because he was helping us a lot with the hemp thing, because he was an older gentleman like Mr. Graves was, and knew what hemp was. And so we all went to ask him if he would do it, and he said yes. So all the attorneys and Woody and myself went to Governor Nunn's house, and we sit and strategized all day about how we're going to do the trial and everything. And I asked the governor, I said, I think you need to be the one that does the closing arguments, because that's going to be the last thing they hear, and it's going to be from a former governor. I think it would have more impact. And he was kind of like Mr. Gray. He's just he was a preeminent politician, but his laugh, I'll be glad to do it, Joe. He's like, and so we get into court, we go through the trial, and I was sequestered through the first part of it because they called me as a witness. So I missed the first part of it. But, after I testified, I sat down next to Woody, and before we'd gone in there, and that was that morning when we were sitting in the back room before we went out, I told the governor, I said, I've got looked like a kind of a granola nutty kind of bar, but it had hemp in it. And I said, I've got this hemp bar, Governor. I said, if you can figure out some way of working this into your closing arguments, I said, it might have some impact. And he just, he just smiled. He said, I'll figure something out. And so he's going through, and he's talking about jury nullification. And for people that don't know what jury nullification is, it's basically you as a juror think the law is not right, so you can just say I'm voting against it. But they won't let you say that in court. You can't tell jurors, look, if you think this law is unjust, then vote against the law and not against my client. So he was doing that in a way that was really, I mean, it was blatant. He's going, you jurors here are the last bastion for justice in this state. You get the last word on whether a law is just or not. And the judge was letting him do it. I mean, the judges would not let you do that. But I guess he's a governor, so he wasn't gonna say, Judge, you can't do that, or Governor, you can't do that. So, but anyway, so he goes through and he's talking about jury notification and how it's grown everywhere, what it can be used for, and all that. And then he gets down near the end, and he's laying down on the jury, and he reaches down in his pocket and he pulls out the thing, and he says, "I've got a hemp bar right here, ladies and gentlemen." He holds it up and shows everybody, and he said, "With permission of the court," he doesn't look at the court and say, "I'd like to have permission to eat this." He just says, "With permission of the court," he said, "I'm going to take a bite of this." And he takes a bite, and you sit there and choose, and you see him, he takes a big swallow, gulp, and he looks at him back, and he's looking back and forth on him. He said, "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," he said, "I got it on me and I got it in me." He said, "So if you're going to convict this man right here," he said, "you're going to have to convict me too." And you could see the jurors were just like, they were just stunned, and he said, "And by the way, ladies and gentlemen," he said, "my astute colleague here, the attorney, was Tom Jones. He says my client," and Tom is writing all the time. He's like he's busy, and he says my client here. He said the only reason that Mr. Harrelson's here is because he wants to legalize marijuana." And he's looking at jurors all the time, and he doesn't even look down at Tom. He looks at jurors. He said, "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," he said, "if I believe that for 1 second," and he took his hand, he slammed down on Tom's desk. And he said, "I'd be sitting at this desk right here." And Tom kind of jumps up, like, "What happened?" But it was just that it was such a surreal moment. That was two things happening back to back, and the jurors were just like, "Okay." And so they go out and they come back, and I looked at my watch, and it was 4:20, which is, the time for that
holiday.
Yeah. So, and I told Woody, I was watching them as they come back in, and I told Woody, I said, it's 4:20. Woody just looked at me and kind of smiles, and I was going, "And it's not guilty." And he looks at me like, like, "What? How would you? How?" He's going, "How do you know that? How could you know?" That's what he said. And I was going, "Look, they're looking at you. All of them are coming in. If they were voting against you, they wouldn't want to be looking at you." And he's going, "Really?" I went, "Yeah." And so, they came in and said, the judge says, "Okay, when I read this, it said, I don't want any outbursts in court, and all this." And he said, "I'll clear the court," which, I don't guess anybody cared, but, when he started reading it, he said, "Not guilty," and everybody just started screaming and yelling, and, and he's banging this thing. He said, "Order in the court." And, so we're getting ready to go outside, and I told Woody, I went, "Woody, when you go outside," I said, "no matter what they ask you," I said, "I don't care what they ask you, just keep repeating, today is Independence Day for Kentucky farmers." And he went, "Why?" I said, "Just do it." And so he does. He goes out, he's like, what do you got to say? And he's going, "Today's Independence Day for Kentucky farmers." And so we ended up going back to Lexington that evening. And it's another just kind of a funny story. We, Governor Nunn had 4 or 5 quarts of moonshine, and he had some great moonshine connections. So we go back to the house, and we're in the backyard, celebrating, having a great time. And we'd probably drank probably half of that quart between 3 or 4 of us. And, we were in a jolly mood. Everything was fine. And my brother comes around in the backyard, and and we start talking, and he's going, "Woody," he said, I got Jane Mansfield's 1957 Corvette out front, mint condition." And Wood's going, "Really?" It's going, "Yeah." I said, her name was on the original title. And he said, "You want to drive it?" And I looked at Tom and I went, but they go out front and everything else. And then about 5 minutes later, somebody comes around, "Woody wrecked Tom's car." I went, "What?" So we all go around front, and Woody's looking down at the car, and Tom's there, and Tom's going, "Oh," Woody's going, "I'll pay for it. I'll take whatever, and I'm kind of laughing because it didn't do a whole lot of damage, but any damage to a mint car is,
damage.
Yeah,
Still damage.
So I'm kind of laughing, but not laughing at him, but just kind of like, "I told you, Tom." Like, well, And Tom looked at me. He says, "What are you laughing about?" He said, "He ran into your car." So I had the same thing. I had this pristine Mercedes, beautiful car. But anyway, so that was funny. What he said was the most expensive 2 seconds of his life.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So anyway, after Woody was found not guilty in 2000, we tried to get a bill passed later that year, but we couldn't get it done. And when we wrote the bill, the one thing that I did, I put a sentence at the end of the bill that said, "Kentucky immediately adopts any and all federal rules and regulations pertaining to industrial hemp." So, and then we changed the bill where it wasn't allowing farmers to grow; it was allowing university research, because we knew you can't vote against research, and that sentence saying that we'll adopt the federal rules and regulations, there's no harm, no foul, because nothing's going to happen anyway until we pass federal legislation.
Right.
States could do whatever they wanted, but until the federal. So there was no issue with that. So we talked to David Williams, who said, we got this bill. If we get enough votes, will you let it be hit the floor for a vote? And he said, "Sure." Thinking we couldn't get the votes. We got all the votes, went to him, and he wouldn't even see us. And so he wasn't going to let it hit the floor. So I went, and the governor lives about 20 minutes away from Frankfort. And I went and met with the governor, and I was going, David Williams, the president of the Senate, says, he told us that he would let the bill hit the floor if we had the votes for it to pass. And the governor looked at me and said, "Well, do you have the votes?" "Oh, yeah." I said, I said, "Here, we got here's who we got." And he said, "Get in the car." So we get in the car and drive over to Frankfort, and he drives like a madman. But we get there, and we go into his office, and he just kind of walks in and, doesn't even say anything. He just walks in and starts walking towards the door to David's office. And his secretary said, "Somebody's in there, Governor. Somebody's in there with him." And he just kind of looks right. He said, "Well, that's fine." And opens the door, and he turned out. He said, "Joe, he said, wait out here." And I was, okay. So about 3 or 4 or 5 minutes later, this guy comes out, looks like an old farmer. And so he leaves. And then about 5 minutes later, because Governor Nunn and David Williams weren't exactly buddies. But, being a former governor, you got a lot of pull. So he comes out and he said, "Let's go." So we're walking down the hall. He said, "It's going to be heard tomorrow." Great. So we all go over to the Senate the next day and sit there just waiting. And then sure enough, it gets brought up and it passed. And it already gone through. The House wasn't a problem. We'd gotten passed in the House, 2 years prior, and just couldn't get through the Senate. So when it passed in the Senate, then that's what really set the stage for Kentucky to become a leader, because now we had legislation. All we were waiting on was the federal government now, and we had university research, and so that's the way the bill was written into the farm. McConnell was the one that really, helped really do that, but it was for university research. So that's how the Farm Bill passed. And the way we got around not just the universities doing it is the university was, we went to the university and we were agents. We were agents because the universities don't have, they can do little small test plots and stuff, but they don't have the wherewithal to go out and grow, 10, 15, 20 acres. So that's how we got around it. And then the DEA says, no, you can't do that. They're not part of the university. So we had a big fight over that. And of course we won. And then then they stopped the seeds from coming in from Canada. So we had to file another lawsuit against them. And I mean, it was a rocky road all the way through. And still to this day, you have and it was something that happened in Kentucky. It was part of the deal that they struck in Kentucky that really set a precedence. Is they said, we'll let the seeds come in, but you have to file for a permit. So it was getting late. The farmers needed the seed, so they capitulated and signed this thing that, they filled out a request to import it. So now, because of that, that was a precedent. So now if you're importing seeds, hemp seeds from outside the United States, because of that deal that was made that day to get the seed in Kentucky, now everybody has to, and that was one thing that I thought should have never happened. It should have never happened. They should, because the judge told the government's attorney, the judge told him, said, you better go back there and work out something with them. He was basically telling them that he was going to rule against them. And, what we were trying to do is just get the DEA out of the whole picture completely.
Right.
That's what we wanted to do. But because it was so late in the year, I forget her name. She was, the Comer was the ag department guy, he was Kentucky, head of the Kentucky Department of Agriculture. And it was his assistant that basically made that agreement with them to do that. But if she hadn't done that, we could have held their feet to the fire. We could have possibly had the DEA totally taken out of it, because the way the Farm Bill was written, it said notwithstanding any other rules or any other legislation. So we had the win in hand. We just folded it early. So it was, it was an interesting ride.
What do you see happening or coming down with the FDA ruling against CBD as supplemental products or ingredient and supplements?
I don't know why they did that, Mandi. That, to me, that makes no sense at all. If you're going to make a ruling, you've got to have something to back it up, saying that, that there's, you can. It's like the court. You're guilty until proven innocent with the FDA. So they just say.
Is it because you think it's because the way Delta 8 is being made, coming down from CBD distillate?
No. Well, see, here's the whole thing. There's 20 or 30 known cannabinoids in cannabis. Now, are we going to start picking and choosing which ones we're going to make something illegal, the other one, and down the road, if we find out that one of the other cannabinoids competes with a drug, are we going to make it illegal because there was another drug that was doing the same thing prior to this? It doesn't. The whole thing is absolutely. It's mind-boggling what they're doing. Mind-boggling, and why they're doing it. To me, it's like the DEA. And like the a lot of the state police in the countries or the states that have, they have a bounty on cannabis. So then they don't care if it's hemp or if it's marijuana.
Right.
If they go down and cut it down, they get so much for what they cut down. So they have a vested interest in keeping the law the way it is. And the FDA, they say, well, we're doing this out of an abundance of caution. They were using cannabis as medicine before the pharmaceutical industry took over they changed everything. So I think the FDA is just here to protect the pharmaceutical industry, because if not, you wouldn't be having all these troubles with people trying to get different natural herbs, where you can say, ashwagandha is good for high blood pressure. You can't do that, because it's not they say it hadn't been tested, even though over thousands of years, we've learned which plants are helpful, which plants are harmful.
Or like you said, just what's been extracted from that plant.
Yeah.
Like one extracted product compared to the whole plant. Yeah.
Well, and the process that we developed, there was a former FDA lady that looked at our technology, which is basically, we don't extract, it's a lipid bonding process. And in a nutshell, basically, we can bond any medicinal botanical into any lipid or medicinal oils at the molecular level. So it actually, you're not mixing, like if you buy olive oil flavored with turmeric oil, they're just mixing turmeric oil in there. Our system, we would put the carrier oil, in this case olive oil, and we would put turmeric root in there with it, and it would actually infuse it into the oil. And so now we have this ability to start making, and I won't say drugs, but remedies.
Medicine. Yeah.
That mimic what drugs do, because what Hippocrates says, make food be thy medicine, make medicine be thy food. Mm-hmm. And she told us, because she saw our system working, and we processed some ashwagandha and chamomile into MCT, or coconut oil. Mm-hmm. And it was one of the richest tasting oils I've ever tasted. And it didn't have the bitter taste that most times the way they extract the ashwagandha gives it a bitter taste to it. But it was great. But this lady from the FDA, she said, I can't wait to go back and talk to my former peers about this, because this turns the FDA upside down, because you all aren't mixing anything, you're not formulating anything, right. You're just basically putting stuff together and bonding it at molecular level, and you're not doing anything that they can have any kind of control over. So it's this technology that we developed is really, really interesting. I've been with this is 29 years. I've been in the industry, and the closest thing I've ever heard to anything like that, there was somebody 4 or 5 years ago that was doing water extraction, mm-hmm. And talking about it, but it wasn't real. It wasn't something that ever worked. And this technology, it's low cost. There's no chemicals. There's no toxic stuff in it. We don't use, we got it. We had, the USDA came in to certify it's organic. Mm-hmm. And they came in and said, okay, so what kind of chemicals do y'all have here? We don't have any chemicals. Well, what kind of corrosive stuff? We don't have anything corrosive. What do you have? Well, we got all water and floor material. And it took about 15 minutes, and they went, okay. And the next 45 minutes was like, man, how does this work? What is this doing? So it was just like, they were just amazed at it. So we got our USDA.
There's got to be chemicals somewhere. Like,
no.
Where is it? Where is it?
Right. And even because we have something that cleans the system out after we do a run, and it's all non-toxic. There's nothing in there's no chemicals or anything. So they said this is the easiest certification we've ever been able to do.
That's awesome.
So it's exciting. I mean, right now, what's happened in the industry, and it happened in Canada. It happened with the crops. The overproduction. And what we've done now also is we've done overproduction on all the ethanol and CO2 extraction processes.
Yeah.
There's more out there than the public can consume. And the same thing that happened with this oversupply of seed or CBD material, the same thing's going to happen with this oversupply of processing. It's over the next 2 or 3 years, all this is going to kind of settle out. Mm-hmm. There's going to be people like these farmers lost a lot of money. I mean, and I always say, and I'll believe it, even though that, part of what we're doing does include the cannabinoids, but CBD, hijacked the hemp industry. Because, when we first started, we were going to build a fiber processing facility. We were going to build a seed crusher. We did do the seed crushing part of it. But, when, early on, we were one of the first people that were growing the CBD crop. Mm-hmm. But then everybody else jumped into it and just crashed the market. Mm-hmm. And, that's the one thing that I'm not really worried about it because, people do what they're going to do regardless of what you say or what, you tell them. But, in the next few years, the whole industry is going to settle out. And you're going to, the people, you're not going to have farmers speculating growing for cannabinoids now. That's over. And if you're growing for cannabinoids, what people need to understand too is that growing for cannabinoid is a horticultural crop. You're working with, these single plants. You're not doing an agricultural crop, which you're dealing with hundreds of thousands of plants, millions of plants. And so hemp is, as an agricultural crop, will be a mainstream crop in the years to come.
So I've got a question for you. When we talk about like this supply and demand and what happened on the CBD side or the horticulture side,
right?
Where do you see the opportunity to not overproduce, like too many processing plants or the wrong kind, or how do we level out this ebb and flow for the industrial?
Well, it's already started because right now there's a ton of leftover material that people are basically giving away just to get it out of their barns. Mm-hmm. So those guys are never going to grow CBD again unless they have somebody that guarantees them a reputable company that they know they have an ironclad contract with. They're not going to do it. Mm-hmm. So what's going to happen? We're not going to have this is going to happen in the processing part of it too. But the farmers that are growing for a horticultural crop for the cannabinoids is going to be a contract grower. He knows what he's growing. He knows the variety he's growing. He knows how much he's going to grow. He knows how much he's going to get for what he grows. Mm-hmm. And that's the only way they're going to do it. The crops that you speculate on right now, corn, wheat, soybeans, they're all speculation. And hemp as a fiber and food crop, it'll be a mainstream crop, and it will, the price will go up and down with the market, just like corn does everything else. But the thing that hemp does is hemp gives the farmers another crop to rotate through the field, and that people that don't know about farming don't realize the importance of being able to rotate crops through fields. And if a farmer doesn't make any money at all, if he can just break even and have another crop rotate through the field, he's happy to do that. But if you can take that same crop that you can rotate through the field and produce fiber and produce food crops out of it,
increase yields.
Yeah,
there's all types of, and like we've said before, is $100 is a large sum per acre on the big scheme of things for a farmer, especially on a rotation crop.
Yeah. Well, and then if farmers can make, I think here in Kentucky, farmland's close to like $3,000 an acre now.
Yeah.
If it's really good land, it might go to $4,000 or $5,000. But if you can make $400 or $500 an acre, that it gives you a return in 6 to 8 years. So that's not a bad, deal for farmers if they can make, because a lot of times soybeans, corn, all that, they're only, sometimes they break even. Sometimes they make $30, $40, $50. On a good year, they might make $120.
Yeah.
But, to me, this is as much about having a rotational crop, just to start off with while we're trying to get the industry started. Having a rotational crop, if you didn't do anything else but that, would be a great benefit for the farmers.
Right. Okay, Joe, we're at about an hour already. I could keep talking for a long time. I've got so much. Obviously, it's a good thing we're going to be seeing each other. And we'll actually be out at the Grow Trade Fest in Missouri and then in North Carolina. So if anybody else is going to be out there, please stop, grab us, say hello. We'd love, I just volunteered you, Joe. I'll just hang out behind you so everybody stops you. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, it was great to see you. It's great to have you on. Yeah. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining. Daryl, I saw you just commented. Hello. Thank you for joining. And again, Dennis, thanks for saying hello. Anything else, Joe, before we sign off?
No, I'm. It's always the hour seemed like 15 minutes when we talk. So
yes,
always enjoy our time together.
Yes, absolutely. Hello, Neil. I saw Neil just dropped in to say hello as well. Okay, well, I'm going to sign off. I've got lots going on. I'm excited.
Thanks, everybody.
Billy this afternoon at our education event. So if anybody is interested in joining, give us a shout out. Billy's going to be talking about hemp farming and the horticulture side and all of the do's and don'ts. And so thank you very much for that connection, Joe.
Okay, take care.
See you later, guys.
Bye.